we get too far, got one of those. Please, silence whatever makes noise on your phone. Also, we don't necessarily encourage photos or video. Why? We have an archive here at the Grammy Museum. We've got cameras rolling, which means you can come here anytime you like when we're open and check out what great artists had to say and do in our archive up on the 3rd floor. We have members of the Grammy Museum here tonight. Members? Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. What can we learn from this? Members, raise your hands again. See, these folks are where? Down front. Hello. If you're interested in becoming a member of the museum, there is information out in the retail store. We encourage you to do that for any number of reasons, supporting the museum and particularly our public programs, because these programs support our education efforts here at the museum. We have tens of thousands of students who come through the museum every year, and the proceeds from these programs go to that. So give yourselves a round of applause for helping our education programs. Let me tell you about some upcoming programs very quickly. On October 16th, a conversation with John Fogerty. Yeah. On October 19th, we do a series here called The Drop. We bring artists in, talk about their latest projects, and on that night, Seth MacFarlane will be here. On October 27th, the great guitar player Warren Haynes will be here. We do a series called Reel to Reel, where we screen films of music-related content, documentaries and such. And on that night, we have a film called Keith Richards' Under the Influence, documentary about the great Rolling Stones guitarist. And the director, whom you may know from the film 20 Feet from Stardom, Morgan Neville, will be here to talk about the movie. On November 2nd, another film called Janis Little Girl Blue, about Janis Joplin. On November 4th, we're doing a panel posing the question as to whether Bob Dylan was actually the greatest songwriter this country has ever produced. And on that night, we can debate that. Obviously, some people here feel that's important. There's a gentleman who wrote a book about that. His name is John Bream. He will be here, as will Lucinda Williams and Dan Wilson, in conversation about that. On November 9th, a great young band, Houndmouth, will be here. Yeah, we have a Houndmouth band. Great. On November 17th, an evening with one of the two terrific vocalists from the original Jefferson Airplane, Marty Balin, will be here. And then on October 19th, a conversation with Peter Guralnick and Conan O'Brien, believe it or not, will be here. So let's talk a little bit about why we're here tonight. And tonight, I will tell you, is 2 years in the making. We could not be more pleased that these gentlemen are here. Our guest tonight created a persona for himself before he stood the music world on its collective head with releases such as Antichrist Superstar and Mechanical Animals. In the process, he gave voice to an edgy industrial sound that was equal to the visuals of the artist himself and the live shows that thrilled and challenged audiences around the world. Along the way, he sold 50 million records, wrote an autobiography, pursued creative interests in visual art and acting while continuing to make music. And after a period of doing some acting and reappraisal, he returned earlier this year with what many describe as his best album. A rare feat indeed for an artist more than 2 decades into his career. Joining him is the producer and musical collaborator on the album, a composer of film and video games. He's worked with leading directors such as William Friedkin, James Gunn, Zack Snyder, while scoring some of the most successful films of the past 10 years, including Guardians of the Galaxy, 300, and The Watchmen, among many others. But before we bring them up, take a listen to this.
The narcissist, better watch yourself.
Emperor, would you please welcome Tyler Bates and Marilyn Manson. We even have a little mic there for you. So.
Oh yeah. I forgot to use
There
this.
you go.
There we go.
Well, first of all, as I said, this is 2 years in the making that we've been working on this. So thank you both for taking the time to come and do this. So first question, how did you meet? How'd you meet him?
Where do we meet? Californication, right?
Californication.
Yeah. So what were you doing on that show?
Playing myself for an asshole that is a version of myself. Pretty much. And
Was that hard or?
just define hard. No, it was cool because I met Tom Capanos and we had a good bond, and then I met Tyler with the first after sort of party, and we never played together before, and I'm not good at jamming or whatever you might want to call it, and then it became a little bit easier when I met him. It was strange but easier, and then we had a failed attempt to try to work with each other because I just wasn't really used to being in that scenario of jamming, and then later we ended up reuniting over the course of 2 or so passes of Californication. Right.
I think the
failed jam was actually not with just 2 of us. It was with including other people.
A bunch of people.
I think you actually described the early on as awkwardly contentious. No, Tyler. Which I find fascinating and wondering how so.
Oh yeah. Well, when I met Manson the first time, we were rehearsing for a concert at the Greek Theater that was part of the content of the show. And every season, Tom Capanos wanted to put myself and my friend who did the music with me for Californication, put us in an episode. So we had to do this big concert. So I MD'd that, and we were working with Tim Minchin, and he was just rehearsing the shit out of us for like 9.5 hours in a 100-degree room. And so finally, Manson shows up at night. When he was scheduled to.
You weren't late. It's okay.
No, he just got off a plane, and we were exhausted, and he was just kind of fucking around a little bit, and I'm just like, hey, can we just play Dope Show? But I think through that he understood that I just tell it like it is. I'm very straight with people, and then 2 days later we actually played at the Greek Theater as part of this concert. We didn't talk, but there was a connection that we made at that point, and from there we talked more and became friends.
And I understand, early on, this was really more about kind of conversations between you guys before there was ever really any discussion about music.
Well,
per se.
That would be a good question for him. He described when I first met with him in his studio, which is probably the most, I would say, it was almost, without being religious, church-like. It was a sanctuary that I went to during the daytime, and he said, this is just a conversation, and we just instantly made music without, and I wouldn't say without effort, it just happened very organically, and it happened as if it were meant to happen, but not, whatever I say, it's going to sound like we have a sort of a homosexual relationship. But
what were you? What was the conversation like? What were you? Besides perhaps the bromance, what were you? What were you telling him?
We had played a year later at another Californication thing, and
Hotel California.
That's true, and we did play that with Don Felder. Tim Minchin the year before. So anyway, we just talked that night, and he's like, "Hey man, let's get together and talk." And I'm like, "All right, well let's see what this is about." And then initially we got, of course, pretty psyched, and I just said, "Look, this is just a conversation of music.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about records and anything like that. Let's just see where this goes, and I just said, hey, my life is cool, man. Let's just make some music, and if it becomes a record, it becomes a record. If
Oh, you asked him about the first day that we worked together. Is that what you're going for?
Yeah. And so anyway, the first day he was coming over, I thought, oh, Manson's coming over in a little while, like an hour. I got to get mic set up and everything because
the sun was up.
Because I have the day job, I do the movies and the TV and stuff during the day, and usually at night. But I don't know, something struck me while I was setting up the mic, and I sat down and just played the song Birds of Hell Awaiting, and just tracked it, and I emailed it to him, and he was stuck on Laurel Canyon in traffic, not driving, in the passenger side. He got my email about 25 minutes before he showed up, walks in, hey man, can we do something with that track? I'm like, sure. So I had the mic set up, so we would sit next to each other.
This far apart.
Yeah.
And
that's how that got
no vocal booth. And
no
that's
vocal
how
booth.
it started.
It would just be him with his guitar, and he put up a mic for me. But most importantly, if you're going for the story, like I had gotten off tour, and I thought, I'm gonna settle down, but not settle down, just get a house.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't had a house in years, and I went to see a house, and it happened to be the guy that was living in it was the guy who accidentally shot Brandon Lee in the film The Crow.
The Crow, yeah.
Yeah. And Michael Massey, and I met him, but I didn't know that he was. I only knew him because he was in Lost Highway, because he was masturbating to me on screen. So I'm not making that up, but so I went, and I got offered to play The Crow too, and I said, I'm not taking that job. Fuck that can. And so the same day I saw this house, and I thought, well, I really like this house. And I was out. This is at noon or so, and I go over to his place to meet him. Still daylight, keep in mind. And so we started recording this Birds of Hell song, and I was stuck in traffic, like you said. And then I said, can I use your bathroom? And I saw on his wall the Crow 2 soundtrack. And I went, wow, this is definitely a sign. And I just had gotten the job on Sons of Anarchy for Sam Crow.
Yeah.
And you can just make as many crazy analogies as you want, but I thought that this was fated, and so we just went with it, and that's a reality.
Right, and the working process between the two of you, Tyler, you challenged Manson on a couple of things with respect to making this record. First, that you wanted him to sing. Talk a little bit about kind of how those discussions went.
Well, I think Manson has an incredible voice. Like there's a multitude of dimension to it that is not common in a lot of singers. And I thought, I know his music enough to know his music, but I didn't know, like when I went on tour, I knew half the songs. So I learned half the songs for the first time I listened to them. But I thought that there was something that his audience and myself could get to know about him that they don't already know if he were to sing a little bit more and sort of expose that part of himself. Yeah. And the songs really he sang with soul and just gave into it, and it was great. I mean, it was really infectious, and one song after the next happened.
No, thank you though. But after we were done with the record, then we were doing some press, and he said that he made the music to go around my vocals because he scores films. And I didn't know that essentially when we were making it, but he didn't know that I was actually making my vocals go around the music.
Well, I didn't tell you what I was doing either.
I know, but see, we never had that conversation. We would just sit down, get a guitar, and I would just, and it wasn't something that was improv. I would come in and I have one notebook. I didn't bring it with me, but you remember I had one notebook and it had a honeycomb on the cover of it. It was very Fibonacci. But it was all written very specifically.
Yeah.
I would write stuff on the way to his place, and by the time I get there, I was writing a song, lyrics for a song that he had already written the night before. And he wrote a new one on the way there, so I had to catch up.
Well, I would always have something.
Tomato.
I would always have something on the table that day, but I wouldn't. A lot of the time with rock records, I think, especially with singers, if they're collaborating with someone, they have to deal with like 20, 30 tracks and sort through all that. And it's not.
Oh, we wrote together though.
This was written together. This was based on an ongoing conversation.
Recorded together. Too.
Right.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, all of this music got made while you guys worked together in the studio. There was not, the band plays something, he comes in and does a vocal later.
Well, later we brought in a drummer to record, but for the most part he would sit across like this close.
Yeah.
And when I sang, he did his guitar take also, and then would embellish on it later. But the vocals and the main guitar tracks were first takes, and I would add to them, but most of the vocals were first takes.
How does that change you as a singer? If you are literally sitting there next to him and he's playing the music, how does that change you?
Well, I've never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been locked in that glass box.
Yeah.
And it's different, and someone had already written music, and I may or may not have been involved in that song I'm gonna go sing to. But when we're writing something together, it seems more, I have to rise to the occasion because we're playing off of each other, and it's almost like performing live.
Right.
So when you make a record, for me in the past, it changes when you play it live because you have an audience to perform to. So you're not just singing, you're not just writing lyrics, you're also performing and seducing whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And I felt that was part of the element. And sometimes we would let people be in the room. Not a lot of people, just close friends or something.
Mm-hmm.
When we were writing songs, just once in a while, and it didn't make me uncomfortable. I thought it made me better at what I was doing. Tyler made me feel comfortable in just doing what I do, and it's felt the same as sitting here now talking about it. Felt the same as when I go on stage.
Did you because he did challenge you in many ways about your singing, about
Daytime.
there was doing it in the daytime. You have said that normally to do a record they'd have to drag you screaming at 3 a.m. into the studio. To
Conveniently for our circumstances, I would finish work at Sons of Anarchy sometimes, and be covered in blood, and then come to see him in the studio. Like, hey, I want to work. It's like noon.
Yeah.
Can I work now? I'm covered in blood.
But he also there seemed to be some amount of discussion about lyrical content and about giving something to your fans perhaps different than you had done previously.
When we initially discussed working together, I said, look, man, if you just converse with Manson one-on-one in a room, you will hear just myriad ideas, so many interesting metaphors.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to inspire people with what's vernacular to him anyway,
mm-hmm.
and to sing it soulfully. And it happened naturally, and I would say that my process, because I have to engage producers and directors and studio executives in a creative process, which they don't necessarily understand the language, right? But they know what they want to communicate. I have to interpret that and create a seamless process for them so they don't feel like they're in the studio and they don't feel like they're deficient in the conversation. And so the way I work, I try and take that stuff, like the studio, out of it, so it's just this.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like when you go in the studio, usually you have to see the front desk person, the first engineer, and then these people you don't know, you're in a glass box. His studio was just us two, and he makes wonderful grilled cheese sandwiches.
What more do you need?
Well, I just mean it was very much about us making music, and you didn't have the distractions of anything else. And I think the thing that Tyler did was he didn't have to tell me what to do. He just made it happen simply by putting on a guitar and started playing something, and it just forced me to. I was in awe, by the way. You know this. I'm gonna kiss your ass right now. I was in awe by the way that he could play what sounded like 3 instruments at once, at the same time, and I was suddenly, wow, I have to really bring my game.
Right.
And lyrically, when you were asking about that, he never said anything specifically lyrically. I would just sing something, and the same thing went musically, because if you remember, for example, on Third Day of a 7-Day Binge, which I think is one of our best records, give it up.
Third Day of a 7-Day Binge, come on. By the way, a great track.
No, but I had to tell him, I said that the guitar line is the hook.
Yeah.
In the same way that he would say to me, he goes, that is the hook. There's no need to really, it was less is more, or when you find something that's perfectly, that you don't have to say so many things if you say it perfectly and profoundly. And I said the same thing to him musically.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a great union.
To that point, we inspired each other to try different things, right? Just not specifically, but just to create the space for each other. It used to, it would be 2 a.m, after it was once light, it'd be called Tyler Bates, I know you won't play, and it'll take on a guitar. So I would get a little my voice. So
I can do that
so
too.
sure enough, I would just improvise over the track and be like, that's it. That's up. So it wasn't like either of us telling each other what to do. It was inspiring each other to do something that was fun and dig down deep for something good.
Well, Manson, you said somewhere before this record was made that in the recent past you were not everything that you aspired to be. You were not as great as you wanted to be. And I'm wondering if in this process Tyler really helped you kind of step up to where you wanted to be.
I would say yes. I would say that when you want to be better than you think you are, especially when you're in a place that's darkness and you feel like you're, I wasn't unhappy with the records I had made before I met him. It was a matter of, I felt like there was something that I needed more, like just a shock to the system. And it wasn't calculated, it just happened because that's when, and it would be the reason why a lot of the lyrics on the record are very, very specifically autobiographical, but they're not in the same way that I've done in the past. When you read a song like Faded, Faithful, Fatal, it's really, it's describing how things were happening in my life, where this has happened for a reason. Don't ignore that. There's no accident that we ran into each other and we had this opportunity, so you have to take advantage of that. And I felt the need to not ignore that and to also step up to the occasion and not be just okay, not just be good, but to be great, to be the best I could be.
Yeah.
And when you have someone like him playing in front of you and you're awestruck and you're thinking, wow, this guy's unbelievable. And then you really have to be the same or better.
Sure. There was a lot.
That goes both ways.
And I should ask that question of you, working with Manson. Did that force you to step up your game? And how so?
I mean, mentally, that's where I have to be all the time, especially in my business. Otherwise, I'm out.
Yeah.
So I'm used to people challenging me. And I think one thing that was great about this music, first off, it was completely holistic. We got together just as friends. It was like, this is not a commissioned work or anything like that. We did it just because we wanted to.
Yeah, that's one thing we should mention, that when we were making it, there was no record label hanging over us.
Right, and the other thing that I thought...
We were like, surprise, here's a record.
But quite seriously, you guys were working on this long before anyone really knew that you were making a record completely under the radar, and I'm wondering if that also kind of helped the creative process.
Well, it took all the pressure off of having to deliver to other people. We were concerned about what we thought was cool.
Yeah, it's like men enduring sex with women's orgasms. Not us, but other men.
I got that.
You don't have to
I got
put
that.
the
Thank you.
yeah. But it did really take the pressure off,
Uh-huh.
and that we didn't have someone coming in and saying, "Can we hear that song?" or anything. We just did it, and we liked it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would play it for other people that we considered to be people that we would want their opinion from. Usually girls. No offense to guys.
And how did it go over?
No, we would just play it to people, and if we liked it, because we're assholes and we hate everything, for the most part, right? I mean, we're very harsh critics
Yeah, a tough audience.
on music and ourselves.
Yeah.
So we made stuff that we thought we liked, and it wasn't being, when you get in a point for me musically where it's, you either take that turn where you make Scary Monsters, Bowie, or or you do bad. You go the other way.
Yeah. Before you met Tyler, where were you musically? What were you thinking about making another record? Were you kind of ready to just focus on Sons of Anarchy and not really think about too much about music?
It's a strange question. I haven't really thought about that, but no, the Sons of Anarchy thing, I believe, came while we were making the record, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom had just died.
Yeah, right.
And, I made peace with that, and I just thought it just started to come out of me, and it wasn't really about anybody in particular except me and the songs. I wanted to make something that was universal, and that's why I understood the blues. Yeah. And the record doesn't necessarily have to have a slide guitar to be the blues. In fact, I do recall that we originally recorded Sweet Dreams in Mississippi, which would be the Delta Blues.
Yes.
And also,
yes.
I Put a Spell on You.
Yeah.
So that was actually, I forgot that we had recorded that, not in New Orleans, but in Mississippi. Yeah. So it wasn't about that part of the blues I didn't understand, the musical sonic element of it. It was about telling a story that is something that you and the person listening to it can both relate to at the same time. And that was something that just happened organically. Maybe Tyler threw that into me, but didn't tell me that. But it was just the combination of us two that it ended up being that. It ended up being, I would sing and his music would play off of what I was singing, and it would go back and forth, and it just worked out to be what it is. And I'm really very proud of this record. Very proud of working with Tyler.
Yeah. You've said that the blues taught you to sing in a certain way, and I'm wondering how so. At least the thought process.
I mean, I think it was just Tyler was playing in different keys than I normally sang.
Yeah. Well, really?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And definitely in some instances, and going way back with the, him singing in different registers and whatever. Sure. I write music around the dialogue of the specific actors and character roles, right? So I consumed the space that I did not want him to be in, and he, just like all of us, were looking for the open space to express something musically. And so we would get to various sections of songs and we would just play. So instead of him going home and mapping everything out perfectly, we would play until something just developed and felt right. It's like a surfer staying in the water until the wave comes, and you have to be out there long enough for it. Yeah. And that's kind of how a lot of this. It's how a lot of this was made.
We would actually, if we were playing the song together, we would, if one of us, either of us, did something that we didn't like, we would start from scratch. A lot of times we would just start with a 4 on the floor kick beat, and then he would just pick up the guitar and I'd sing, and then we develop it afterwards. But the root of the whole record was us two playing off of each other with the guitar and the vocals, and we had this, and we still have this same chemistry where I'll sing and he'll play off of the melody and I'll play off his melody, and it'll just bounce back and forth. I've never had that in life before. It made me become a different singer, better singer, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just something different. And thank you, Tyler.
I'm wondering, is it your sense, Manson, that frankly now, having experienced kind of this process of recording, could you go back to the way that you made records before?
The way I made records before was much more creating a song, and then I would have to dwell on it and write lyrics to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was never organic. Like I said before about the part about jamming, I've never had that sort of element. But he and I don't, it's not so much like a live band situation as much as it is two people, I don't know, Hall & Oates, Simon Garfunkel. That was the worst Hall & Oates.
You reading text to Lindsay to me while I'm playing the guitar, and then it's like, oh shit, that's a great chorus.
Yeah, no, I don't think I could ever go back, but it's, it's a different way. But it makes me open to trying new things.
Sure. I want to talk about a couple of the songs on the record, and particularly the whole intention strikes me as being announced in the first song, "Killing Strangers." I mean, that thing is just a stomp from the get-go, and as you kind of sequenced the record after you'd had all the tracks put together, intentional to choose that song as a means to kind of announce that this is different. Did I just hit a nerve?
No, it's funny because originally we were completely dead set on "Worship My Wreck" being the first song, but it wasn't because
what was it about "Worship My Wreck" that
we just felt that it really introduced the album. But then we thought about it after, and it wasn't a record label saying, "Oh, you got to put this song second or third." It was a few conversations where, well, you don't want to. Like as if it were a film, you don't want to give that song away that soon as a story, and I had to step back and look at it because it was a story that was telling itself, and I was using the subconscious and the unconscious, and he and I were dead set on having "Worship My Wreck" be first, but then we were happy. As I said, "Killing Strangers," that's the way we got to go, and that was me playing the pill bottles.
Yeah.
It was
AC.
And Advil, I swear it was nothing.
Cases are going to show up at your house tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that song, it's strange because I never played the record to my father, and who was in Vietnam, and he had driven out from Ohio, and unfortunately, or fortunately, sorry, Dad, he's living at my house. So he drove. No, but he drove. I had to convince him to drive from Ohio and live with me.
Yeah.
But the first time he came out to visit me, he had not heard the record. And he was telling me a story because I had paused on the TV, Apocalypse Now. My father was in Vietnam, and we discussed a few things that, private between he and I. And after he said that, I said, well, Dad, you're going to like this song. And I pushed play. It's "Killing Strangers." And and it worked out great that it was in John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
It was perfect because Tyler was responsible for that. And so that it just worked out perfectly. Just everything was falling into place. And that song, for us, seemed... It was the one that we liked the most, I think, at the time. But it was a difficult call. There was no filler material. No filler material for us.
I mean, was it somewhat of an ongoing discussion in terms of sequencing, in terms of figuring out kind of
that's
how to tell the story?
The 10 songs on that record are the 10 songs that we wrote at that time.
Yeah, we did.
There weren't 20 songs.
There were no throwaways.
Right.
But the sequencing we sort of did together because we had an idea, and it was not based on the normal single has to be second because we weren't really thinking of it that way. We just said we're gonna do this, and we do it the way we want because we like it this way.
Right.
And if you play it to people and they like it this way, then that's the way you should go.
Sure.
That's the hard part is getting if you get a girl to like it, then the rest of it's easier. I mean, it's like doing the math backwards. No offense, guys, but just do the math backwards.
I'm taking notes on this because when I make
that's what we went to rock and roll concerts when we were kids, and because girls wanted to fuck the band, and we wanted to meet the girls that didn't get to, and then and now that we made the record, so now we are the other guys. So now we're a little bit, we had to reconfigure our algorithms.
You're thinking.
Just let that one go.
For those of you taking notes at home, this is.
I said algorithm.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question: who is Mephistopheles, you or Los Angeles?
That's a good question. It's a
job.
good question.
It's my job.
Tight dick player. That was sort of the question when the song was written.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about it until someone put that in my head before you asked it. When you cover the story of Faust, which I was surprised so many people didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think that the fatal error of that song being, we wanted to call the record that initially, but so many people did not know how to even say Mephistopheles. So it was really unfortunate. The schools are really and so.
There's something very appropriate about it.
But I mean, to simplify it, you got being a deal with the devil.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that coming to Los Angeles, I think Los Angeles would be more the, I think that I'd be more Faust in that whole situation.
Yeah. Look, I want to get to Worship My Wreck because, it strikes me as listening to the record that there is, there's a lot of difficulty in some of these songs, and there's a lot of pain in some of these songs. That one in particular strikes me as being more pained in a way than the others, and I'm wondering kind of where you were coming from when you wrote that.
That's probably why we wanted it to be the first song. It was our masterpiece, I think, of the record. I feel like it's our. I mean, we love all the songs, but I think that's our song that we love, because when it kicks into the end chorus, you can just see gunfire and slow motion or crying. There's a lot of visual. I mean, it's very visual because of Tyler's. That's what he does. He creates visuals with music, and I've always wanted to make albums that were movies, and so it was perfect that I met someone who makes music for movies. So it couldn't be better. But that song was. I don't think that it was about anything as much as about myself trying to regain my hold on the world, to regain my control. Because I think the one thing that everybody in this room can agree on is that it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter where you go, the one thing that hurts the most is when you don't have control on your life. And that was pretty much where I think the origin of the song started. And then it just grew from there, and the metaphors or whatever I used were based on past experiences and not necessarily what was happening at the time, but just, I think, in a way, like a biography of myself.
Yeah.
So it was a way of reintroducing myself to the world. I felt like this record was my first record because you have to admit that you didn't do as good enough as you could have to make a comeback. And this record, for me, was intended to be a comeback. And Tyler said he wanted to make that happen because he saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. And it just started to grow. And that song was the origin of it. And I wanted to be better than I was before in the same way I did when I made my first record.
Yeah.
They don't compare musically, but just emotionally. So it was more of a statement of purpose.
Yeah.
You know, my manifesto. Worship My Wreck was my manifesto.
Are you in a better place now?
You think you're in a better place?
You mean right here?
Well, I know you're in a better place right here, but
Yes.
artistically, creatively, emotionally.
Yes. We just started working on new music together, and we're having a great time doing it.
That's good news.
Yes. Did someone just go? Yeah, and as far as that, working on stuff, and also about to go on tour, but mostly this year has been enjoyable.
Uh-huh.
I really had a good time touring.
Well, and I want to talk to you about touring because you said after the record was done, you said you wanted to take the songs on tour. You wanted to make the show more biblical, though not necessarily religious. How so? How does that work for you?
It's several degrees of redneck. Born in Ohio, moved to Florida, then went to New Orleans, then went on. So that's very different.
6 degrees of redneck.
6 degrees. I don't know, that's 6, that's 3. But mostly, we had an idea of what we want to do, but the one thing that we both, I think, regret, which I'm not saying we're not going to ever do, because we will. We know that we'll do this, right? Wanted to play the record top to bottom.
Uh-huh.
That's what we intended to do when
Yeah.
we made it. And I want to do the same thing with, Antichrist Superstar and the other 2
Right.
records that went with it in February. But most importantly, I don't want to dwell on the past, but I know people are fans of the past.
Sure.
But I like to make people fans of the new things that we do. And I think this record, Tyler managed to get me to draw out whatever it was that people saw in me originally and do it in a different way, but in a way that was not the way that when you try to recreate yourself in a bad way and you end up just destroying it, everything that you've done before.
Yeah.
Because I was just, he for the most part convinced me that I was comfortable just being me. And sometimes I would say something like, hey, should I do this lyric? And he said, just own it,
Yeah.
If I was uncomfortable with it, I would ask his opinion. He said, just own it. So not just a music collaborator, but also as a producer, he was very good at, in the same way a director or something, the most important part is someone who makes you feel comfortable with yourself, and that's, we always feel comfortable around each other.
Why did you you really wanted to have Tyler on tour?
Well, he came on tour.
Yeah. But why was that important to you to have him along?
Because I cared about the record so much.
Yeah.
And we were as I spent a year with him almost, because we were
longer.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we developed a bond, and I didn't want to go at it on my own without him.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about kind of being on tour. And I'm wondering for you. No. We're going to talk about this now.
Our first non-shows were in Moscow. We actually never played. We went, but we didn't play. We were pulled off the stage because there was a bomb threat, and then there was a show canceled due to religious protest. It was the perfect beginning for me. Fly to Russia.
What did you learn about Manson by being on stage with him? What surprised you about it?
Oh, first off, I learned how to play without ever looking at my guitar because I didn't want to be impaled by something.
This is good to know. Thank you for that.
Yes. Not that I ever would, but the guitar must be positioned no higher than your belt buckle.
That is true. If you hold your guitar above your dick, then that's not good.
Fortunately, like some of the pop bands of today, we agree on that, Yeah. But sometimes if I had to get down on the guitar, I had to spread my legs, so I had the
We had
widest,
it was
stance.
the first time that we had 2 guitar players, and it was was new for me, like the stage alignment and everything. It was a different change of pace, and you know, we had good fun. We won't talk about anything bad because we didn't have anything bad. We had one bad night, whatever. It's like whatever.
One bad night out of 40.
One bad night out of all those nights.
Yeah.
But obviously it's not bad because we're here together. So there you go.
And
you can applaud now if you want.
Tyler, you put the band together, right? I mean, you were kind of the MD for the whole.
Well, Twiggy, who's been
right.
part of the band for the majority of Manson.
He did put the band together.
There. But Gil Sharon, who I believe is here, is the drummer in Manson.
Here.
He's somewhere.
Gil
came in and played the drums actually at the end of the process, and he's doing great things.
Yeah.
So he's the drummer in the band,
right?
And a friend of mine.
Tyler did put the band together.
Mm-hmm. Paul is playing guitar, and he's doing a terrific job. So it's
whatever
he says. Planned.
So whatever you say. I'm with you. You did it. It's your job.
So the album.
It's your fault. Your choice or fault. I love you.
Notice how we're leaning to the opposite sides of our chair.
So the album gets released, and the critical response is really positive, and I'm wondering, did that surprise you? You know, or does it even matter to you?
I wasn't surprised because I felt really good about what we did, and I thought, you know, people will always want to knock you down.
Yeah.
I used to be a journalist. One of the first things I learned in journalism school was if you want to spell blonde and it's a girl, you put an E on the end. And also, if you want to write an article about someone, be a dick, and you'll sound like a better writer. That's what they taught me. That's true. It's like don't ever compliment someone you're writing about. And I never wanted to write about anything I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the world has changed. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's always had an opinion, but now, you know,
they're free to share
things
it.
Change.
Yeah.
And it was nice that, you know, that we're sitting here talking about it. This is a compliment, thank you. But also that I felt that it was justified that they compliment the record as it was, because I did my best to make a comeback. Mm-hmm. And that involves saying that you weren't as good as you used to be.
Yeah.
To make a comeback. And I was also working with Tyler, who had the biggest movie of the goddamn year, Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think I was just, you know, knocking him out of the park in that sense, but I needed his help, and we were a team, and it just worked together. So I was glad that the critics said that, but at the same time, when I played it in front of an audience, I could see people's faces, and that is when you really know that's when you can gauge what really matters, because people can say anything in writing. And freedom of speech does not come with a dental plan. It doesn't. It does not.
Especially now.
It's the real.
Yeah.
I was happy, and I felt like it was deserved, because I thought that we put our heart and soul into it and put a lot of hard work into it, and I was happy that they said that. Mm-hmm.
Is it your sense, I mean, important to you to somehow reinvent yourself in all of this?
Well, it's always been important to reinvent myself,
yeah.
But this was different than trying to reinvent myself in a sense of evolution, mm-hmm. where you become stagnant if you don't, in the Madonna sense of the way, or in a me sense of the way.
Yeah.
But this was about reclaiming what I had created and wanting to own it and do it better than I did before. And I couldn't do that without Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, you've said, and now about Manson, I'm about to speak about you in the third person, but that this is a true rock star.
in a way that we have come to understand rock stars.
Oh, rock and roll is sadly lacking.
Yeah. Yes.
Rock stars.
Yes.
And Manson obviously is one. This record, his vocal performance, his lyrics, all that stuff is not. It's not a fabrication. It's part of him. It was a matter of just bringing that out. I mean, the way he lives his life, who he is, the things he says, the things he does, is truly who he is.
Yeah.
Tyler is not just a musician; he's also a lion tamer.
That is true.
That's true.
That's true.
Because he had to wrangle a bunch of crazy and put it into a record. Because I think crazy is one of my charms.
Right. It can be like herding cats at times. No, you know what? Honestly, I think a lot of why we felt the power of this is because we both have a lot of things to do in life.
Right.
This was not about money. This was not about a deadline. This wasn't about, I guess we got to make a record or any of that. This was something we both really wanted to do. I work in a very intense, high pressure environment all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was fun, but I killed myself to do it too because I worked 20 hours a day.
But you were not. There was not a lot of bullshit here. You kind of, your message was, if we're going to do this, we got to go to work.
He came to work.
Preach.
Mm-hmm. We did.
Yeah.
We had a great day every day we worked, which is remarkable because really we did a lot of, let's say, reconnaissance just with, afterthoughts on songs. But for the most part, we're talking probably 30 sessions. And then, over months, we would curate the songs, but it was work. I mean, we got in there and we did it. And I think we encouraged each other to put forth a strong effort.
Also specifically, Tyler, when we record, because of what you do normally, it's sort of mixed as it's going along. So there's no such thing as a rough mix with us. And when we finish the record, one of the 3 record labels that we're trying to bite our dicks to, no offense, Tom Waller, the people wanted to work with us.
Yes.
Put out the record.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of how can we make it better? The traditional, old school, 1995 sense of what do you do with the record? Let's get somebody like this name or that name to mix it. Mm-hmm. But the way that Tyler and I had done the record, which is the way he does his scoring, is it's mixed as it goes. And if you give it to someone else that we don't know, or if we're not in the room, it could really make it not as raw and organic as it is. Yeah. And we weren't really concerned about, we want control over everything. But then at the same time, it's we kind of went back to that, and that's what the record sounds like. So Tyler is also not just a great musician, great engineer, and a great friend. So.
We did turn the record of that part of the collaboration over to a very close friend of mine, Robert Carranza, who may be here. Robert's worked with just all kinds of incredible artists that we all know, and he's worked on movies with me, and he had a great understanding for this record. And I think, similar to me, he didn't have preconceived ideas of what Manson needs to be or what a Manson record should be. It was more about him.
Except day one.
The music.
When I showed up. So we ended up with Robert, and I was there, and I was having a really shitty day, and I was just not wanting to hear anything. I said, can you just give me a minute, because Tyler hadn't shown up yet. And he said, listen, can I show you something? I'll cheer you up, Manson. I said, it better be good, because I'm going to be pissed off, because I'm having a bad fucking day. And he had this frequency analyzer, which is basically like, 4 squares, square with 4 quadrants in it. And he showed me my voice going through it. And it started to slowly form a star and then a pentagram. And I thought he was fucking with me, and I said, and then he told me he was an astrophysicist and studied previously before he quit to make music. And that made me love him, and that made me want to do the record, like finish the record, because no, it ended up making, I have it on slow motion video of my voice. He said that I could not be auto-tuned. I have 5 notes coming out of my voice at all times, which he said was an anomaly after he's won, I don't know how many Latin Grammy Awards.
He's won a handful.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. So, fair warning, we're going to ask for like a couple questions from the house in just a minute. But before we do that, we were talking about, you know, Tyler and being in the studio. One of the things that I was fascinated by, because of your facility with technology and the recording process, you could be like changing things on the fly basically while Manson was recording, and you could do things really quickly.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's worse than that. Like he would start playing guitar, and then his whole, I'm not gonna give away his KFC secret, but he would start playing things, pedals, and then guitar, violas, and guitar at the same time, and it sounded like an entire band. And I'm like, what the fuck? I thought I was gonna say F.
That's okay.
No, we're gonna go with fuck. No, I was amazed by it, because he was doing things that I never knew were possible, and I was just amazed by it. But he would not just change things on the fly. It's just his nature. It comes out the same way with my voice. If he plays something, I will just change. He made me sing differently.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing previously almost.
Well,
I don't know what he was doing before he met me.
But
we adapted to each other.
Yeah.
when it was like I said before, when he would ruminate on developing a melody and the lyric, he'd be like, let's hit that again, or whatever, you know, so. And we're in headphones. And we're in headphones, and so, you know, it's kind of what it sounds like. So, anyway, he'd be like, let's get that again. So the music's still going, and, you know, I'm used to having people in my studio, executives, heads of studios, directors, whatever. If they have an idea, they want you to give it back to them like boom. So I would then just, if we're on a section of music, he's singing, I'll just take it and just loop the hell out of it without ever even having to stop, so that we can just keep the ideas going without, you know, and for a singer in a studio, when you're in a booth and then you're like, wait, stop, and then everyone's talking in the booth, you can't hear them, and you gotta start again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Play that again. Yeah.
So there was none of that. It was a very fluid.
Besides all of the musical part, he was able to adapt to my impatience, or my like the fact that my brain is moving 10 times faster than my mouth can for the most part, and he understood that and was just, I don't know if he prepared for it or just is the way he is, and we never had to have a conversation about it. It would just automatically happen. Sometimes just the other day we were recording and we were talking about one song, and in the middle of it he started writing another song, and we started singing on that song, and then we went back to the song, and it was flawlessly, didn't even seem confusing to us, because I think that our brains work differently, but in a similar way, where it's hard to shut it off. There's a circus going on in our brains all the time, especially for him, and also for me. No, I wouldn't say especially for him. My circus is different. It's like, you must be this high to ride.
So we're gonna take 1 or 2 questions from the from the house here. Do we have a question or two? Fine looking group of people. Yes, ma'am, right here. Hi. It's fine that you can sit. This is not church, so to speak.
Throw money. It is a strip bar.
I'm a drag queen actually, so you can give me stuff.
And your question would be?
Yes.
First of all, I love you. I've been following you for.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've been a professional musician for over a decade, and it's been extremely hard, and I've tried all different kinds of things to make it work. And my question is, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming musician that's trying to make it in an industry where people keep saying it's dead?
That's a tough answer. I mean, it's a tough thing to answer because it's. I'm in the position where a lot of people. I remember when GarageBand came out, or when MySpace came out, Facebook came out, YouTube came out, and people were going, "Well, it's everyone could be famous now." And I took it a different way. They were all pissed, my friends, and I said, well, that just makes you have to rise to the occasion. So for me, I would say don't sign with a record label.
Well, I didn't. I did a Kickstarter.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying that my only advice would be don't just jump to sign with a record label initially, but just make sure that people like your music, play shows, and see if people like it. If people like it, then you know you're doing something right. That's really all you could do. I created Marilyn Manson without any songs. And then I was, oh shit, I gotta write songs.
Now I gotta follow this up. Yes, hold on. The gentleman behind you, we'll get to the white t-shirt here in a minute, but yes, sir.
During the writing process, do you ever hit a wall that you just can't break through? And what do you do to work through that wall?
Get through the block.
You talking to me or Tyler?
You.
To both of you, actually.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, I've had that problem. I think a lot of times I'll be sitting, maybe watching television or films, and I might be with somebody, and they might think that, well, why are you doing this? And in my brain, I'm taking the experience, be it inspiration from books or film or art. I think that the best place that you want to get inspiration from, you want to be a writer, then read books. That's where I found.
So we got time for one more, and we're going to do the gentleman right there.
I have to say the vinyl pressing of Hell Emperor sounds fantastic. I think you guys had Chris Bellman cut that. Are there any plans to revisit the back catalog and reissue it? And if so, can you please have Chris Bellman cut those out?
Wow.
Because it's insanely difficult to find any Marilyn Manson album besides this and Born Villain.
Thank you, I guess, on behalf of Chris Bellman.
Well, and a lot of
It was Tyler's choice.
the Loma Vista, the record company, definitely helped put forth the multitude of ways you can experience this record, which is great. So it's available in any format you can think of. And
The answer is, if we do revisit, maybe next year in the old pressings, yes, I will take your advice and Tyler's advice. Use Chris Bellman.
Well, we could not be more pleased that you.
Speaking of, like, you have split personalities.
I don't think so. Do you think I am?
We said we.
Well, we, the royal we, the Grammy Museum we.
Okay.
We could not be more pleased. I'm speaking
Thank
for the
you.
audience.
Thank you.
I've never had to define myself quite that way before, but that's okay. I am personally pleased that you took the time to come down here and chat with us. This was terrific.
I'm also personally pleased because Tyler had to trick me into it.
Tyler, for joining you. But as much as we would love to keep talking, the reality is I think you guys have a couple of things prepared for us.
Yeah, a Grammy that you're going to give me.
People have spoken.
Preach.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
Tyler Bates, Marilyn Manson.
We do a couple songs.
It was worth it.
I'm going to do maybe 1 to 2 And I have songs. Easy target.
Stay here all night.
I gotta get one. This is. This is how we made this song. Wait, you calm down.
Everybody's videotaping.
I know.
You don't need it. But no, we can line it up. No, we get it. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna put mute on. All right. Stood in the face of grim death, screaming monsters, bring me to deafness. My dagger and swagger are useless in the face of the mirror. The mirror has made up my face. This is the house of death. Even angels die in arms of demons. This is the house of death. Even angels down the arms of demons. Hide your heart in your guts, but for what? When they're waiting to pull you apart like a scarecrow on death row. So now all your secrets will show. This is the house of death. Even angels down the arms of demons. Oh yeah. This is the house of death. Even angels down the arms of demons. No one uses those disagree. Travel the world and the 7 seas. Everybody looking for something, and some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for something, and some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Tyler Bates.
Tyler Bates, Marilyn Manson. Wow, let's hear it for these guys. Everybody have a good time? Thank you for coming to the Grammy Museum. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Holy shit. I didn't know he was going to sing that. I can't wait.